Hello guys, this is Pavel Oskarov from Laravel Daily team of developers who work with Laravel and also educate the market how to reach successful IT projects, also educating developers and clients. And this is the video for both of those groups. I will take a real project from Upwork, you see that on screen, and will show you how I approach the very beginning of the project, because it's the hardest part. For client is how to describe the project that developer would understand. And for developer, how to pitch for the project, how to price the project, how to engage into a conversation with the client, and all of that. So from this text and attached description, how to move further, how to choose the right developer, how to raise right questions, and a lot of that. So the first mistake, actually, what is made by both actually clients and developers, they both try to save time in the very beginning. So clients try to minimize the work on description, so try to provide the short description and then with the thought that they would engage into a conversation with developers and then describe it in person. But then it takes time. You have to engage into conversation with every developer, like 10 of them, if there are like so many candidates, applicants. And for developers, developers try to save time and try to pitch for the price immediately. So they read this and then the PDF, I also have that. So they read the documentation, or actually not even read, they kind of scan through that and see, okay, I want this CMS, I know this, I know how Laravel works, this and that, and it's roughly this amount of money, and they go and pitch to the client, so I can do that for $5,000 in a month or whatever. And both of them lose because they're kind of guessing what would be the outcome, what would be the price, what would be the budget. And what should happen for the success of the project for both sides is both sides would have to prepare for that conversation to happen. So clients would provide as detailed description as possible, not exactly too detailed, but like overview, but with a bit of details. So developer would come up with questions, but developer would kind of have in mind the project itself. So I will show you how I'm doing that, and this is one of a better descriptions by clients. I would actually pitch for that project myself if it wasn't for Christmas holidays, because I don't really have time for that now. So yeah, but I would pitch for that, but I don't have time, so I will just use that project to shoot this video to show how I would do that. So let's read quickly. Bespoke CMS for web application, and I will save you time. We'll summarize that. So there is already existing Laravel and MySQL database, and this project is to get that data and put into another system, another CMS, to filter the actual actions to happen on that MySQL database. And it's related to airplanes, flights, from what I've read. So what would be, so airlines, agents, and airports. So agents would have to know what actions need to be done with some airlines based on some filtering of the database. So that's the kind of overall summary. And this is a good description. So first thing, if you are, for freelancers, if you are going to spend some time on pitching for the project, choose projects wisely. So filter the client, average hourly rate if Upwork shows that, or any other system. So my example is from Upwork, so I will continue based on that, but whatever system or source of the description you use, try to filter out that the client is worth fighting for, worth pitching to, because you will spend now an hour or two or even half day to prepare for that pitch. And if it's not worth it, if the budget is like $100, or if the project is too small, or if the client is not with 5-star rating, then filter that. As soon as you have filtered, so this project is worth, also another filter if the description is too short. So if it would be only this, if it were only this, I wouldn't pitch for that project, because it's like finished project, CMS solution, Laravel, but doesn't really mention any details. So attachment, in this case it's 5 sheets, PDF, really well done. So kudos to the client, potential client. So mentioning also the CMS sitemap. They call it CMS, it's not actually a CMS, it's a data management system, I call those. So users log into the system and do some actions. So they mention both menu items like sitemap, functionality, and also some philosophical things on why do you need some details. So who would be the users, expectations from chosen developers, some philosophical thoughts here. Also, what is brilliant here, they mentioned who would be the actual client. So this Adrian is product designer, and Adrian explains that he lacks technical knowledge sometimes, but he is good enough with SQL. So this is a great part. Now developer can understand who is he dealing with and what would be the level of technical conversations. So this brief is really good. Now, what do we do from that? What I like to do is transform project description, so this, into two things. First thing would be to-do list, and second thing would be database schema. And actually in other way around. So first should be database schema, and then it will transform into to-do list what you do with that database. And the result of all of that would be set of questions for the client, what is unclear, and therefore your goal as a freelancer is not to pitch immediately, is to start the conversation. Conversation with questions, how do you need this to be done, I suggest this and that, and something similar. So I won't do exactly that in this video, it would take like an hour, but I will show you the goal, so how I would do that. So from those descriptions, I would try to summarize that into the database. So okay, we have airports, handling agents, and airlines, so that potentially would be database tables. Also scope of work, lookup fields for some page tables, so I would look for those page tables. Access controls for CMS users, which means probably roles, permissions, and something like that. And then from here, airports, again, airports, agents, airlines, roles, subscription. So that's new. That wasn't mentioned before, so that's kind of a downside of this description. Subscription packages and billing wasn't mentioned until the final sheet, or at least maybe I missed something. So that's also typical kind of mistake from clients. By the way, they mentioned something which actually is kind of half of the project, because subscription packages with billing, it's a huge thing. It's SaaS because it includes then invoicing, plan changing, plan cancellation, VAT if it's applicable, and all of that. So I'm working currently on a few SaaS solutions, and I will work more on that because we want to generate some code, and I can tell you that. So these two things are massive. But anyway, from those I can gather that there will be probably subscriptions table, payments table, and user billing information table, something like that, and invoices probably. So from that I would try to draw the database schema first on paper. And yeah, hear me out, it's not some MySQL Workbench or any detailed software. First I get pen and paper and draw it on a sheet of paper. Only then I transform that into a visual schema into PNG file, and I do that with MySQL Workbench, but with help of our quick admin panel. We have tools to generate admin panel, but as a byproduct it generates the migrations for Laravel project, which is exactly the database. So I go into quick admin panel, I create CRUDs, so for example users, roles, subscriptions, agents, airports, and all of that with relationships. Then I download that as a project, I run artisan migrate, and then I open MySQL Workbench to reverse engineer that into a schema, into a database model with PNG, and then send that to the client. I have a video about that, and I will link it up in a description. So that's the way how I think about description to database. And on the way, I would face unclear things. So unclear how, for example, update DB tables through CSV import, including validation to avoid DB corruption. So this would raise a lot of questions. So validation of what? What fields? What should happen, for example, if I import and I encounter the same row? Should it be ignored? Should it be validated? Should it stop the whole update? And something like that. Then action required tables populated by SQL queries. What SQL queries? question to the client, do you have them already? Then, for example, user access control. So how deep should that be? Should it be full roles permission with ability to add more roles in the future, or should it be kind of semi-hard coded to the roles that are existing in this description? So stuff like that. A lot of questions already would appear from the database structure, because you will try to list the fields. So for roles, you would have to list like roles name and permissions. Should it be, how flexible should it be? So from those first set of questions, and you copy paste, or add that to a separate document. I use Google Docs for that, or even sometimes I use Sublime Text or like any notepad just to write it down, Google Keep, for example, and then I list those questions more and more. So first thing, I do the database schema. Second thing is the to-do list. So what I would start with, and actually that database explains, because database relationships, they show the basically relationships. So you start with users, then users have roles. Then, for example, user are agents, and agents, let me show you that. For example, each airport must have at least one agent. So then you want to have airports before you have agents, right? So you have to work on airports management and then add agents after that, because there should be a relationship to the airport. And then kind of CRUD by CRUD, database table by table, you list all the functionality. So in my case, I usually look for projects where we could apply our quick admin panel to save time, because then clients could have quicker results. So I would start with generating database schema with quick admin panel. With that, clients already have the core like back office or admin panel with database. Then would polish each of those. So airports, maybe some validation. Then I would add CSV import they mentioned. Then I would add the SQL queries they mentioned, and so list function by function already on existing database, and list those functionalities. And that would raise another set of questions which weren't related to the database schema but would be related to UX. So how should it work? For example, as handling agent, I log in and I do this and that. How should it look? What should be the button or menu item or sequence of actions? And then it would raise more questions to the client. So if you want to dig deeper, you can do short version of all of that and raise only like 3 questions to the client, which would raise a dialogue in itself. But what I tend to do, especially for like bigger projects or the projects that I really want to win, is I spend a few hours on doing exactly what I said. I would just prepare the Google Doc for the client, or even video. Video is even better because client would see that you're actually talking to them, not just written word. So verbal language is much more trustworthy, so they would trust you. Like I'm speaking to you right now, you will probably trust me more than you would read that in the text description or in some tutorial or in some article, because human-to-human interaction is much more powerful to sell. It is selling, it is pitching for the project. So yeah, that's what I would do. And then the next phase is actually conversation back and forth. In my case, from my experience, it's usually 2 or 3 conversations. So first round of questions, answers, then reframing and reshaping those database structure and UX, then providing to the client the vision. And by then, there could be first estimate of time, budget, whatever you want. You want to do hourly, you want to do fixed price, or it's called value-based pricing, whatever pricing model you choose. But by then you would have rough estimate, at least a range. Before that, if you provide estimate before set of question and answer, it's a blind guess. Just admit it. You are guessing and you're betting on the project to take that amount of time. Or if you do hourly, then client is guessing how much it would cost in the end, how many hours would it take. So yeah, I guess that's the whole message. That's what I wanted to tell you. So my overall message is to not over rush with the project beginning. Don't start with pitch for the price just to win the project. And from the client perspective, don't rush with choosing the candidate. Just engage into a few dialogues with a few candidates and choose the best one, the most appropriate, who is actually interested in the project, and then start the development. That's it. I hope it was helpful. If you want to have more videos like that on project management, on specification, because I'm becoming more interested in that part as I'm growing myself from developer, from freelancer into team lead and project manager. I still do coding, but less than I used to. So if you want to hear more thoughts about that, shoot comments below. What topics or what questions do you have about project management, scoping, pricing, client management, freelancing, and all of that, and I will try to shoot more videos like this one. See you guys in other videos.